Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animation not made by the mouse. I'm your host, Octaviano Macias, and today Halloween came a little late this year. Or I guess if you're the Simpsons, it kind of does a lot of the time. Yeah, I'm talking about Treehouse of Horror. Before we get started, I just want to say, if you're listening to this on YouTube, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe to the channel, feel free to comment, and ring the bell for notifications. Also, if you're on Spotify or just any other podcast site, follow this show on those platforms. So Halloween isn't the same without a Simpsons special. And yes, even though sometimes they come out in November, yeah, it's really just not the same. Treehouse of Horror is just a year staple. It's the one thing that we can rely on every single year for Halloween, ever since it debuted in the second season of The Simpsons. Now, this is a topic that I wanted to talk about as a big episode, and someday I might revisit it with more people just to really get into it, but for now, I'm going to be talking about the first episode and just a general idea of Treehouse of Horror. Now, yes, I am aware that Treehouse of Horror has essentially gone on long enough that the more recent ones are Disney productions, but this is my show, I don't care, and it wasn't a Disney production for years, so it counts with whatever I'm talking about. Plus, I've broken the rules so many times it doesn't even matter anymore. Point being that Treehouse of Horror is, for those of you who are somehow unaware of it, a fun selection of shorts created by The Simpsons that are meant to be more on the darker side for Halloween. I was going to say spooky, but realistically a lot of these aren't all that scary, and as they went along, there were some that didn't really even feel like Halloween shorts anymore. But yeah, generally speaking, the Treehouse of Horror is supposed to be the Halloween stuff for The Simpsons. They're supposed to go more out there, more pretty much play around with the characters and their lore, and aliens factor in, because we gotta have Kodos and Kangs somewhere in there all the time. And for the most part, I don't know, I think most of them have been fun. There are some, especially in later seasons, where it just feels like they're doing more of a collection of jokes rather than an actual story. But I do feel like in recent years, they've kind of come back around to really honoring what Treehouse of Horror was meant to be. And one of the more interesting things about Treehouse of Horror is that in recent years, they've kind of evolved from what we know about it. There was one a few years back where it had 5 shorts instead of the usual 3. They went back to doing the 3, but they've also decided to do full episodes that are just Treehouse of Horror segments, by which I mean, for example, the first one that I saw doing this, they did a parody of Stephen King's It, and it was a full episode, but it was still considered a Treehouse of Horror episode. And I think that's pretty cool, honestly, to do Treehouse of Horrors that are full episodes. And it further lends into a theory that I've had for a while, where Disney, if the show ends within, like, let's say the next year or two, will probably still do Treehouse of Horror short just because it's such a popular thing, but probably expand on it by just making it like, hey, look, here's a bunch of Simpson shorts that some people came up with within or out of the studio, kind of similar to their Star Wars Vision shorts, where it's going to be horror themed stuff. Each one will have its own thing, and they'll run as long as they need to. One can hope that that's what it's going to be, but that's kind of where it's heading towards now. But of course, you know, if you go back to the original stuff, you always had your usual stuff. Like I said, Kodos and Kang were commonly on there until at some point they couldn't figure out how to put them in, and it's become less, I want to say less of a staple, but they do always pop up. It's just that it's now less about them being involved with the plot and more them just offering commentary, which, you know, fine, whatever, don't mind that. Originally, they had Marge pop up in the intros, and she was supposed to be the one be warning parents about it, and I still feel that might be necessary in some of the shorts. I think it's best that they left those behind, but I still wouldn't mind seeing it one more time just for fun, especially because, hey, it would be a nostalgic thing. And yeah, they used to even have some wraparounds with these shorts. I believe the last time they did that was maybe the 4th one, when they had like Bart doing like the Night Museum or whatever it was called kind of thing. But yeah, that's no longer a thing. They just start with the shorts and they go from there. And for the most part, a lot of great stuff. There's a short, you know, at some point where they had a bunch of Homer clones, very funny. They've done parodies of various things from Avatar. Not one that I really remember liking too much. They've done a Transformers one, probably the weirdest one that they've ever done, just because the whole short is in Christmas rather than Halloween. which is why I say some of these don't even feel like Halloween shorts anymore. They did just a whole bunch of things. I mean, in the more some of the more recent ones, they did a Death Note parody, a parody of the Babadook, and it's just been very creative, very funny stuff. And before anyone says that, oh, they used to do more than just parodies, keep in mind that one of the most beloved, if not the most beloved Treehouse of Horror short is The Shining, which is a parody of The Shining. They've always done the parodies. In fact, here's what the first Treehouse of Horror was, which is what I mainly revisited for this episode. Your first, segment was a haunted house with the Simpsons. Your second segment was the Simpsons being captured by Kodos and Kang, and a third alien voiced by James Earl Jones, who are pretty much feeding them and preparing to eat them, according to what Lisa believes, which, from my understanding, is a Twilight Zone homage. Even if it isn't, the last short is definitely a parody, or tribute, I guess, because the last short that they do is The Raven, the Edgar Allan Poe story, and it's a pretty faithful retelling, just with the typical Simpsons flair. And, they're all very cute, they're all very fun. They've grown a lot more on me than, watching it now than when I saw it as a kid, because I remember the first time I saw it, I thought this one was one of the more boring ones. But now, certainly I'm more refined, more, have better taste, and I think, yeah, it's cute. I don't think it's one of the better ones, mind you, because I do think that they did get better as they went along. But for something going back to where it began, how we got the name Treehouse of Horror, it is pretty neat seeing these shorts play out the way they do. And it is pretty nice to see, like, okay, this is how it started out, and compared to now where they don't have the wraparounds, they don't have the intro with Marge, warning parents, they just go ahead and do like an intro skit, start with some shorts, and have even done full-on episodes that are just one story. It's pretty nice seeing this. It almost feels like we're in an alternate universe of sorts. Seeing it where it was just like, okay, this is just your everyday Halloween episode, and then it's almost like an institution of itself. Like, it's almost like The Simpsons has a miniseries within its own show, and a miniseries that realistically has gone on longer than some of the other shows that never lasted too long. Because at this point, Treehouse of Horror has 30 plus episodes just dedicated to this iteration of the show. Now, am I willing to say that Treehouse of Horror is probably the best Halloween version of any show ever? Yes, actually. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that no other show has ever done any good Halloween episodes. That'd be crazy. I know regular show had some really great ones if we're talking about animation. But, I mean, what's more iconic than Treehouse of Horror when it comes to Halloween episodes from any show? Nothing. This is just an already incredible show creating another incredible version of itself. I mean, there's people that don't watch The Simpsons anymore, but still watch Treehouse of Horror just because it's that good. And again, I do think that there are some, especially from later seasons, that are kind of misses just because they don't really do episodes like with stories. It's just more like a collection of jokes. There was one that they did where it was a parody of Stranger Things, and the whole thing was like, I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny because I know that that's a thing from Stranger Things, but all it is just you doing a joke without telling a full-on story. I mean, I don't know what's the worst Treehouse of Horror, but I would say short-wise, the ones that are definitely up there is the one where Homer gets paralyzed and eventually becomes like a farting Spider-Man. And there's also a Harry Potter one where even the people behind this were pretty much like, okay, we didn't even know anything about Harry Potter at the time, so that's what we did. There's ones that are kind of amusing just for the setup alone, but aren't that great. I previously talked about the Avatar one, where they go to essentially Kodos and Kang's planet, according to this, and that one's kind of amusing just because it's Kodos and Kang. They did The Shape of Water, and that one I think was kind of adorable. I thought it was kind of funny. There's been fun shorts with these characters, and there's of course the masterpieces. Like I said, The Shining, one of the funniest episodes I've ever seen. My personal favorite actually comes with the short that is right after that one in the same special, where Homer time travels with a toaster. Just an absolute blast of an episode, filled with the funniest gags I've ever seen in any of these. And, with that, it's like, yeah, this cements itself as the best Treehouse of Horror ever, just because it's like you got two of the best ones back to back, to the point that the third one, which is a short about the cafeteria, the school's cafeteria serving up kids as lunch and dinner and whatnot. It's still a great one, but it's pretty much overshadowed by two really great shorts. It's like, how do you follow those up? And yeah, you got your masterpieces, you got your duds, but it's always fun to see what they do. So again, talking about the episode that I did watch, the one that started it all, it is a very solid episode. And even though I still think that the first three seasons, mainly the first two, are kind of lackluster in compared to the rest of the show, I do think that there are gems in there, and this is definitely one of them. And it's understandable why this became the thing it became after you watch this one, because it's a very cute setup. You got the kids, Bart, Lisa, Maggie, in their treehouse. They're telling ghost stories while Homer is around just listening in. And for the most part, it's just, okay, let's tell stories to scare each other. The first short being Bart creating this story about a haunted house that the Simpsons buy. Lots of funny stuff there. You get Homer basically admitting that he was aware that it was haunted or just didn't bother caring because it was so cheap. The house eventually becoming annoyed by them. Gold mine of laughter, especially because the Simpsons are so bad that even in a haunted house can't stand to live with them. You got the second short, which is of course the iconic intro of Kodos and Kang, which again full of great jokes. Homer being abducted by having two tractor beams pointed at him because he's so heavy. Classic joke. And they're all eating, and of course Lisa spoils it by revealing that the aliens are trying to eat them, but it turns out that they weren't. They were trying to feed them while making them rulers. Whether or not you believe that that's true, it doesn't really matter. That's the end of the short. And finally, you got that last one, which I think is the one that's aged the best for me, because it was one where I was like, looking at it before, I thought it was just a boring retelling of the Raven. And look, it is a retelling of the Raven. It has its goofy stuff, and that stuff, I don't think it's as good as some people make it out to be. I feel like a lot of people who really love it are like English majors or English teachers or just stuff like that, which perfectly fine. I get it. Me personally, I just thought like, okay, well, they've done more creative stuff, and they have. But for what it's worth, just going back to it, seeing how quaint it is kind of neat to see them do an actual story with barely any actual jokes and just seeing how they play it off. It's one of those things where it's like, sometimes it's nice to just see the actual story play as the actual story rather than trying to create this snarky, cynical version that makes fun of the silly aspects. Like, it's taking everything at face value and just making little jokes here and there, not by making fun of the story itself, but by having the characters kind of acknowledge it. And of course, even the end of the Odash short results in Bart saying that that wasn't really scary, where people back then much more scared. And of course, Lisa were kind of in agreement. And I do think that there is something kind of charming about that, where it's like, hey, look, it's kids retelling this story. It's a good retelling if we're being honest, but it's just showing like, yeah, by this point, it's not as terrifying as it might have been back in the day. And regardless of that, it's still just a charming little retelling of the story. James Earl Jones, who sadly passed away recently, kills it in this story where he's pretty much narrating the whole way through. And he actually pops up throughout this whole segment, which kind of feels more special now, because he, of course, pops up in the Kodos and Kang short as the chef, and then he had like a small cameo with the first short that they did. I don't think he was the voice of the house. I'm pretty sure it was just the guy who brought in their stuff, but whatever. And these are all just really cute, well done stories. And in a way, it kind of feels like if The Simpsons ever feels like the writers ever feel like they don't know what to do for a Halloween short, I do think that they should look back at this one specifically. They can look at any of them, but this one specifically, just see the structure and see how, like, yes, this is how we told those stories, even if they were not based on anything specifically, or if they were based on something specifically, just to get an idea of how to do this stuff. Realistically, I think even if you're not working for The Simpsons, if you're just doing like a comedic horror story or something like that, these are great to look at. And for the most part, I just think that this whole show is just amazing because they're able to do these spooky tales really well despite being a comedy show. And again, it's not like it's ever really that terrifying. I mean, the characters even kind of acknowledge it here with the only person who actually gets scared being Homer. But at the same time, I just like the idea that we can create this tone properly and set the mood properly, even if we're making jokes about it. Like with the haunted house, yeah, there is a lot of funny stuff with the characters and their lines, but just the way it sets up, especially when they're being taunted by the ghosts to kill each other, I think it's just a really well done segment of just building up the tension, even though we still know it's a gag. So yeah, Treehouse of Horror is definitely something where I'm like, if you're not a Simpsons fan, you still gotta check this out. I feel like it's just one of those great things to watch just to get the idea of a horror vibe and whatnot. And of course, if you are a fan, of course, you've probably already watched all these multiple times this year. It's still worth watching, and honestly, I love The Simpsons. There's really no way around that. I love The Simpsons. So, with all that said, I kind of feel like I've said everything I kind of want to at the moment. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next time.
This is indeed a disturbing universe.
Thanks for stopping by. Go ahead and follow this channel. Subscribe, like, and comment. Ring the bell for notifications. Go ahead and also follow my podcast and give some love to my Patreon account while you're at it. It's www.patreon.com/psycams. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you come back for more in the future.